Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Heidi Solomon-Orlick. So I have to tell you, this is going to be a great episode. Today we're going to be talking about Heidi's mission to train and mentor women for careers in sales, in part through her organization, Girlz with a Z, Girlz Who Sell. Heidi is a passionate business development leader with 30 years of global BPO experience. She is a diversity and inclusion champion, a change agent, entrepreneur, and mentor. She's committing to supporting women and girls by continuing to push for racial justice and intersectional gender equality. My goodness, that was almost a tongue twister.
You did great.
Heidi, she invests in leaders, companies, and products she wants to see in the world. Heidi is also an active aging advocate who believes that older women and men are not obsolete. Age equals wisdom and experience. Likewise, she's committed to closing the gender gap in B2B sales. So, Heidi, this is going to be such a great conversation. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Lynn, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be a part of this.
Well, we are so excited to have you. And for everyone who's joining us for that first time, hey, make sure you don't miss a single episode and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, share the love and click all 5 stars. Okay. All right. We are talking about sales. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So, hey, Heidi, let's get right into this. I would love to hear your story about why you created Girlz Who Sell and what are your core aims and objectives when you started.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, thank you for that very sweet introduction. I really appreciate it. I hope I can live up to all of that, all that hype. As you mentioned, I have been a B2B career executive for the last 30 years. I started my career in advertising and marketing. So I spent 10 years doing that, mostly client services, and then went into direct marketing. And to be honest, Lynn, I fell into sales. I think no young woman ever, when asked what they want to be when they grow up, says, I want to be a B2B sales executive, right? So hopefully with Girlz Who Sell, we'll change that. But my father was probably the strongest role model in my life. He was and still is, although he's passed away, the best salesperson that I knew. But sales was not really on my radar as a woman. And so 30 years ago, I fell into a sales career working for a business process outsourcing company in California. And when I met the CEO, who actually was an old friend from college, and he, asked me what I was doing, and at the time my life was somewhat imploding, and I was looking to make a career pivot from advertising to something else, whatever that was. And he offered me a job as the vice president of sales. I was like, I can't do that job, right? Like that job's not for me. And he said, why not? And I said, well, because, I don't know anything about the BPO industry. And, I'm really not a career sales professional. So I'm not sure that I'm really suited for this profession. And he said, first of all, you're awesome. And second of all, you've got the personality. You're going to be great. And none of us know anything about the BPO industry. We're figuring it out every day. So come on board, and thankfully I did, and that was the start of a 30-year career, and certainly at the time the industry was very male dominated, and I was frequently the only woman at the table. And actually, fast forward 30 years later, and I'm still frequently the only woman at the table, so it hasn't changed much. Maybe just that deals aren't necessarily getting done on the golf course or in the strip clubs. But I was really, because of that and being a woman, really was focused on, how do I leverage my unique and innate skills as a woman to be successful in sales. And one of the things I really focused on was becoming an expert in my industry. And I really do believe that it was a differentiator for me as I've, moved through my career and into sales leadership roles. But something I've always been passionate about, especially since I was in such a male-dominated industry, was mentoring other women and sponsoring other women and helping to train other women so that they could be successful in sales. I just had never really done it in a formal way. And so, prior to launching Girlz Who Sell, I was really thinking a lot about purpose and about the impact I wanted to make in the world and how I can move the needle and take my 30 years of experience in sales and marry that with my passion for mentoring women. And that's how Girlz Who Sell was born.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I have to say there are so many synergies. I fell into sales. My dad was the best salesperson and my first mentor throughout his life. He's also passed. I mean, it's just there's so many similarities. Although once I started in sales, I never looked back. I went after every challenge. I sought opportunities to climb, that corporate ladder. And so that's the only thing I can see is a little different. But absolutely, the only woman at the table, a very different environment. I was not doing the deals in the strip joints, but at cigar bars or the golf course.
Exactly.
I was doing it at work or at a nice dinner table, at a restaurant. So that is it's so funny. And yes, you see that, and you see often that women don't feel that they can do all the different roles that you have in sales. The negotiation. You have to ask, right? You have to ask for the sales. You have to do all the follow-up. Some women don't feel comfortable doing those things because we've just not been socialized the same way. And this
Yeah.
goes for men too. It is a lot of stepping out of your comfort zone. You have to be able to take on that mantle of rejection and know that it's not about you, you know, and that you
Business.
have to get through a bunch of no's to get to that yes.
Right. I agree. I love that perspective. And, as I was creating the business model for Girlz Who Sell, there were a lot of um, organizations that were focused on women that were already in sales. And that space was a little bit crowded, and there's a lot of companies that are doing fabulous work in that space. And so I decided that I really wanted to get a little bit earlier in the pipeline. And so one of our missions, which you mentioned, is not only to close the gender gap in B2B sales, which today women only represent, there's a couple of different numbers, but let's say between 32 and 35% of people that are in sales. But once you start to overlay some different, women in leadership, sales leadership roles in different industry sectors, and of course then overlay diversity, the numbers, get gradually more and more dismal. But I was really focused on working with younger women and the confidence factor, which we did an actual webinar in this, and some of the self-limiting beliefs that we have as women. And it may be socialized, probably is, right, of what we've grown up to believe, really do get in the way. And I think I've spoken to a lot of young women or even existing sales executive and sales leaders who have said, I didn't think I had the personality to be able to be successful in sales. And, because I'm shy or I'm analytic or I am an introvert. And my perspective is, no, that's your superpower, right? Those are the things that we're going to teach you how to take what, your innate strengths are as an individual and leverage those to have you be successful in different sales roles, right? And there's a lot of different roles that you you can take on. The other thing, Lynn, I think is really important is that I think we need to change the perception of sales overall. I think, it does have that, old, boys club, we're going to kill it. We're going to, and even the language that's used in advertising or how sales jobs are promoted or characterized are very, it's very male oriented, right? And women don't respond to that. And so I think, one, building women's confidence in their ability and their, innate personality traits is one thing. Building their confidence that to one, apply for jobs, and then to break down that negative perception of sales is something that we're really keenly focused on.
Yeah, so I mean, you touched about a lot of things, about this really big gender disparity, especially when you get into B2B sales. I think that more women are in B2C sales and that lower end of sales, because it's as you climb and get into B2B sales, that's where sales is sort of such an interesting career, because you can either earn the least amount of money or the most. I mean, there's a
Right.
huge range, and it's when you're in B2B sales that you start to earn a really great income. And this gender disparity, I do agree that there is a lot of you see that in negotiation skills for women, even when they're getting their first job, or um, they're negotiating a pay raise or a role change, that they take what's offered for them, and they also look at what the job requires, and they go, well, I can't do everything on this list, so I can't apply for it. Instead, where a man will say, well, it doesn't matter, I can do half these things, I'm good to go, I
I'm
can
gonna
learn
go
the
for it.
rest on the fly, right? And
Right.
so there is this really, I think it's a part of it, maybe that mindset and that attitudinal shift that needs to happen, um, that women need to see outside of themselves, that a lot of the things that on the job you are trained for any specific career in any environment of the culture and the role in, even in BPO and different companies, they're doing different things, right?
Right.
And so a lot of that is learned on the fly. For me in sales, I think the reason it really fit for me is that my core value is to help others, to be of service. And so sales was like this natural fit, because, it wasn't world peace, it wasn't the Peace Corps, right? But I was still able to help somebody take something off their plate that they didn't have to think about again, and
Yeah.
I would completely manage it, and so that it was like it made their day just that little bit better, their job a little bit easier. For me, that was incredible. And so that was why sales was such a good fit. And some of those blockers, um, I was able to get past them, because that desire, that burning desire I had to be of service. But
Yeah.
how do you see that as that gender gap?
Yeah. I um I agree with you. I think that um that's part of dispelling some of the negative perception of sales, that it's not just about, selling a widget or being focused on money, right? In fact, I had a really interesting conversation with someone yesterday about that, because he was asking me, what was it that attracted me to sales? So similar to you, and I thought about it, and I thought, one, solving business challenges, so being
Yeah.
able to come in and make an impact, um, having a client that has a business need or a business challenge, and be able to work collaboratively with that client to move the needle in their business is really important to me. I love that portion of my job. Second is I just love people. I love relationships, right? So being able to work with a variety of different individuals and different corporations in all different parts of the world. So the international component of my job is super exciting for me. But I think the other thing that maybe gets missed, and I'd love your perspective on this, is um, through sales, we create jobs, right?
Yeah.
So, when I walk in and, I sell a client program on, and they give us, a couple of hundred positions in support of their business. And I walk into the center and I feel the buzz, and, I see that we've created hundreds of jobs, which exponentially impacted their families and their families. And so when you think about the downstream domino effect of that, I think it's really cool. And I think people don't think about that. I do not lead with money. In fact, if I've ever gotten to the point where money is my driver, first of all, clients smell it from a million miles away. And they're like, I don't trust you because all you really care about is trying to sell me something, whether it's the right thing for my business or not. And I have prided myself on integrity and building trust and honesty, which not that men don't do that, but I think that sometimes they have a little bit of a different approach. And I believe that if you take care of your clients and you take care of the company you work for and you take care of your community and you take care of yourself, that at the end of the day, the money will come. And you speak of financial independence. Um, that's important job, right? And I don't know that, especially the young women that we're working with right now, that's a aha moment for them. So one is, oh, I'm not just hustling and killing it and meeting a quota, I'm actually solving business problems, and making an impact on business, a business impact. But um, I'm making money too at the same time, which affords this this financial flexibility to be able to do what I want in my life, which I think is really important.
Yeah. And I agree about that money piece because that's and I've worked with all types, both women and men who were very focused on what they could get out of the client in a way.
Right.
And and that's just, it doesn't matter what type of career you have. There are people who have their own agendas, and it doesn't matter if they're doctors, they're, they're, they're in hospitality, whatever the industry is. So,
Yeah.
but there are always those people who are sort of those champions. And you're right, in sales, one of the things for a business is that no business, no matter how big, can stay in business if they don't have sales. And I mean, we've just been through this with COVID. It's just brought
Right.
it home more truly than everything. But, sort of try to live as a business without any sales for 30 days. Um, and that's the reality. Those sales are the lifeblood of the organization. But at the same time, you're part of the team. Sales is just as you're not more important than anyone else on the team. From the janitor who makes sure the bathrooms are clean so that when you go in, you don't feel the stress of yuck, you know? They're making your
Right.
job a little better, right? They're
Right.
making everybody, and so everyone is working together, and you're dependent upon the rest of the team members in production and operations for doing what you've sold and executing on it flawlessly. So it's very symbiotic. And I think that for women, we can see that side of that nurturing relationship to some
Yeah.
extent. And so I think that there's also some other identities that we should really, sort of break down, because there's racial, ethnic, the LGBTQIA community, and all of this gets impacted with gender disparity. Because I know that I certainly have seen that, in my executive experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is why, as a part of our corporate mission, it's not just about closing the gender gap in B2B sales, but it's all about building the largest pipeline of diverse capital, diverse early stage female sales talent. And the diversity component to it, I think, is really important, because even if you look at that 32 to 35% of people that women that are in B2B sales, it's still comprised primarily of white women. I mean, it
Yeah.
just is. And so when you look at, I mean, there's some measurements for, women of color as an example. I don't think I've ever, maybe you have, seen any statistics around the LGBTQ plus community or the trans community or anything in sales, right? So that might be something interesting to unpack at some point. But I'm sure the numbers are very low, right? And so I think the diversity component for us. So if we go from 35 to 50%, but it's all white women, I'm not going to be satisfied, right? I really do want to focus on building a diverse workforce. But one of the things, we have an upcoming webinar next week, actually, on April 29th, and it's entitled Sales Hiring 101. It's about unbiased hiring, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what happens is there is a lot of a bias in the hiring process. There are a lot of the advertising is not gender neutral. And to your point, women are not going to apply for jobs unless they meet 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 of the boxes that they can check. They just don't have the confidence in being able to do that. So
yeah.
I do think the diversity factor is very important. I saw an interesting statistic today that sales leaders, who are hiring for sales positions, 75% of them want to be very intentional in hiring diverse candidates, and yet there's a disconnect in terms of the recruiting process, the advertising process, and those kinds of things. So you can have good intent, but unless you but intent isn't I don't think is enough. You really need to have a very specific plan in terms of how you're going to target and recruit diverse candidates.
Yeah, no, I mean there's so many different levels, like you said, and you have to really break that down into all the different processes. And sorry, I don't, just frog in my throat, everybody. Not literally. So it is interesting because you have to look at that, and even from a point of not knowing the person's name or where their address, or like maybe which school they went to. Some of those things help them certain that initial evaluation process. It's like a blind evaluation, because they found that when they do things like that, there's much more parity. The same thing, I mean, even at a high school or college level, if they don't know who it is who wrote the paper or who did the math problem, there's the grading is more fair. So it is really interesting, and we all have unconscious bias, and it's really being made aware of that, and then putting systems in place to really help address that, so you can lean in. And certainly there's a small group of companies. There's still like 16 US companies that follow the piece that Obama put in to really provide transparency on their hiring. I mean, and the wage discrepancies, so that they can reach that parity. And so they created processes so that it doesn't, that job pays this, period, and and all the benefits and things like that. This is the box, right? And so instead of having, oh, well, this guy was able to negotiate an extra weeks of vacation or a little extra pay, and then having that so that it's transparent, and where people can talk about their wages, like, hey, Heidi, how much do you earn? How much are they paying you as a base? And then how much the percentage is on your commission, right? Because I worked in a situation where every salesperson had cooked their own deal. And I mean, it's just, you know, and I got to that feeling later on there that changed, right? But it was like, this is not fair, you know? So,
Well, it's
eh,
interesting. I worked in a one company where I worked there and then I left and I came back. When I came back, there was a new sales leader and he said to me, I'm just here. And I was always the top salesperson, right? President's
yeah,
Club. I
yeah,
always blew away my quota. And so when I came back, he had this transparent conversation with me around, I'm just curious, why are you making $10,000 less a year than your male counterparts in the same role? And, but your quota is higher. And I was like, I don't know. We need to fix that. So
yeah,
he gave
yeah,
me, when I came back, he gave me a raise, in base, just to be sure that it was equitable, it was wonderful, but I didn't know. Now I was, at the end of the day in sales, though, yeah, you have your base, but none of us salespeople work for our base. So what I
you
love
can't live
about
on your base.
sales is that, I go and I can, excuse my language, but kick ass and just do me. And I'm going to, there have been times when, I've made more than the CEO of the company, right?
Yeah,
And so, I'm really comfortable with my ability to perform, but that is a problem, and I think a lot of companies are beginning to look at pay equity and begin to standardize that, not only in sales but across the board in terms of paying people equally for similar jobs, right, or the same job. um, and I think that's obviously super important. The other thing we talk about bias. I had a conversation yesterday with a senior executive at a huge technology company, and she was talking to me not only about some of the things that they're putting in place to around diverse, intentional diverse hiring, around changing their advertising strategies. But one of the other interesting things that they're doing, particularly in sales, because she runs a sales team of 2,000 people
yeah,
and across the globe, and is they're taking the criteria um, of being a college graduate or off the table, because they found that particularly in looking at diversity hiring, but in sales you don't necessarily have to have a college graduate or an MBA, and it's so easy to default when you're hiring to say, we're just going to go to the top Ivy League schools, and we're going to hire their recent graduates, and you're leaving a lot of really, really excellent candidates off the table if that's
yeah,
your recruiting strategy. And so they just eliminated it now, and I love that. I love that, because
yeah,
that's part of what Girlz Who Sell is doing too. Is yeah, we're looking at working at putting together training programs targeting college age students, but not necessarily 100% of people are in college. College isn't necessarily accessible to everybody, but you can be a rock star salesperson. In fact, the job that I told you about, the first job that I had gotten in sales in the BPO industry, the CEO of the company never graduated from college. And he took that company when I joined the organization. It was a $14 million company, and now I think it's 1.2, 1.3 billion. And he never got his degree. So I think that we just need to people, that are putting together these recruiting programs and that are doing the interviewing, they just need to check their bias at the door,
yeah.
and be otherwise you're going to lose out on a lot of really good candidates.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole much more about, the culture fit, and that you have the right power skills to be able, because everything can be learned, other things can be learned on the job.
Yeah,
And you're right. That is a really, so I mean, with Girlz Who Sell, you've been talking about how you address gender disparity, and
yeah.
so and who you're targeting. What are some of the tools that you offer?
So right now we're focused on training, on creating training programs. So we're a new company. I created the business in October of last year and launched officially in January. So we're still early stage, pre-revenue company, but it's exploding. I mean, the interest has been phenomenal, which I think it's a sign of the time, right? Which is very encouraging to me, that we're in the right place at the right time with the right message. But the first thing that we're doing is putting together training programs targeting college age women. And the first program that we're launching is called, it's hashtag Explore Sales. And it's really beginning to position sales as a viable career alternative for young women. And so we're going to be rolling that out in the June timeframe. I'm working with a lot of colleges specifically. In fact, a lot of colleges that I've spoken to are looking to integrate me personally, but what we're, some of the curriculum that we're doing into their business and marketing oriented programs in their curriculum into the fall, which is also really encouraging. So that will be a training program that will that we'll be setting up, and that'll help women, really get a better understanding of what sales is. What is
Yeah.
B2B sales? I mean, that's the first question when I talk to young women. They're like, I don't even know what that is, right?
Yeah.
What is B2B? What is B2C? They don't. So, it's a fabulous training program. And at the end of that training, when they get through it, and all through the modules, I'm hoping that we give them a realistic view of the good, the bad, and the ugly, in sales, because it's not an easy job, and I don't want to present it as being easy. You made the point earlier. You need to be able to compartmentalize and accept rejection and realize that it's not personal, that it's just business, and all the other things,
Yeah.
prospecting and having the confidence to cold call and speak to people that you don't know, and to really dig deep and be able to identify and challenges and problem solve and all those things that come
Yeah.
with it. So
Yeah.
we're going to tackle all of that in the first training program, and I'm hoping that when they come out of that, that there are the majority of women go through it and say, young women go through it and say, you know what, I want to go to the next level. And we have 2 follow-on courses. One is peeling back the onion and really starting to get deeper into selling, into sales techniques and those kinds of things. And then the third class is a 6-week certification course. So even if you're not in college, you can kind of go through the process. And that certification program, particularly as in early stage, if you're looking at internships or entry level career in sales, that's meaningful to organizations. And so that's what we're doing. But there's, I'm also not hoping, but that, some women may go through the Explore Sales program and say, you know what, now that I've learned all this stuff, it's not for me, and they decide to self-select out and focus on something else. And that's okay too, because I think going through it, sales, whether you decide to have a career in sales, a more formal career in sales or not, sales is a skill that it's a life skill. It's a skill that
Yeah.
you're gonna use throughout your life, and it's going to be important. So that's what we're doing. We also it's longer, kind of a longer term vision, but we're creating a train the trainer program. So my vision is to put other women in business. So, whether you're a teacher or you're a trainer or and basically set up Girlz Who Sell franchises, and where Girlz Who Sell will be a content aggregator, and we'll be able to put other women in business so they can start their own Girlz Who Sell franchises and take it to market. And that's how we're intending to expand globally. And one of the, what's funding this, well, aside for me at the moment, just because we're early stage, is we're really looking for corporate sponsors that have, B2B sales teams who have a real emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, who are super keen and intentional on diversifying their sales team and bringing in more women into their sales team and getting that early, securing that early stage sales talent so that they can bring them in and retain them. The one thing I want to address that you said, which I think is really important and plays to the retaining, we can help build that pipeline and get and bring women into sales positions. But unless we fix the culture, and it's a company that does have a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion and career pathing and providing the right tools for women to be able to excel in their careers, they're going to leave, particularly the millennial generation. They're not going to stay. So I think we have to approach it from a couple of different angles. One is build that pipeline, get more women to apply, but we also need corporations to commit to diversity initiatives. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because I mean, there's a B2B sales is an incredible career, and I want to touch on one thing you said, because sales is leadership. And going through sales training, whether you ever work a day in sales or not, you are working in sales regardless of where you're at in your career. You're selling your idea to your boss, or you're selling an implementation plan to the team. You are negotiating for a raise. You're having to deal with people with different agendas and bring them together. People with different styles. I mean, all the way through. Heck, you're negotiating with your partner on what show to watch on Netflix. Okay.
Right. If you've ever tried to negotiate with a 3-year-old, let me tell you, sales comes in handy.
Well, Heidi, this has been such an incredible conversation. I really appreciate your sharing your vision and how women can get into and excel in sales, and what you're doing with Girlz Who Sell. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about where they can find out about you and Girlz Who Sell.
So the best place is our website, so that you can reach out at www.girlzwhosell with a Z, GIRLZ, whosell.com. You'll through the website be able to learn more about our organization. You can apply for different training programs, and you'll have the ability to reach out to me directly. I'm very accessible. I'm very interested in speaking with everyone. So join us. We also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page and a Twitter page, and soon to be on TikTok. So lots of other ways for you to find out about us, but probably right now the best place is the website.
All right, and we'll be sure to include that link in our show notes for everyone. And I want to thank everyone who listened, Heidi, especially you, because this has been such a great conversation. For those of you out there, if you have ideas that you'd like to share, you can leave us a comment down below. We'd love to hearing your thoughts. And of course, if you have a topic or a specific question that you'd like to ask, you can email us at jointheconversation@petitetoqueen.com. And to stay current on all our insightful advice and breakthrough advantages, sign up for our weekly Wisdoms newsletter at petitetoqueen.com. Thank you for listening. And Heidi, thank you so much for being here today.
Lynn, thank you for having me. I could have spoken to you all day long. So it was, I think, one of the fastest 40 minutes I've ever experienced. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.